So I'm here with Burt Chojnowski. Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations with your film Darshan, Blessing of Saints, which is a short documentary film. If you could just give us the synopsis about that, Burt, that would be wonderful.
Darshan's Blessing of Saints is a film I shot in India in 2018 while on my way to Nepal. And I had met a holy man, Pandit Chandra Sati, at the Mahakumbh Mela, which is a big religious festival in India in 2013. He became the star of my movie Tirthraj that won some international awards. And I let him know I was on my way to Nepal. Sent him a message on Facebook and he calls me 10 minutes later. He says,
well, on Facebook, done a Facebook call or whatever?
No,
yeah.
Whatever, on my cell phone or whatever. He called FaceTime, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised because I hadn't talked to him in 3 or 4 years, but we communicated. He says, would you like to go to Rishikesh with me if you're coming to India, through India? It's the 50th anniversary of the Beatles being in Rishikesh with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He says, I've got a driver lined up. I said, I don't have a place to stay. He said, don't worry, we'll find you a place. We were planning to go for five, maybe 7 days.
Yeah.
Stayed a month. Never had a plan from one day to the next. And during the course of that month, he took me to a lot of the special temples, holy places, Maharishi's ashram, and we started meeting these holy men.
Yeah.
And so I pull out my iPhone and start recording some of these conversations. And I spent another month in India after that, or different parts of India. But it was these conversations that I thought were really poignant because these are really remote. Some of these swamis or babas or yogis are really hard to reach or hard to find.
Yeah.
Some of them live on top of the mountains or remote ashram.
So they are hard to get to, some of them.
Yeah, yeah, and they were so gracious to me. And typically you go into a temple, you can't take photos. You go into an ashram, they don't want you to take photos or video. And they gave me full permission to record all of our conversations and stuff. And to me, it was pretty inspiring. And I wanted to have the record from my own collection. But then I started showing it to people, and they said, well, this is really pretty good. And so I've shared it with film festivals now all over the world.
And are you quite, I guess you are quite spiritual, I mean, in terms of, why, yeah, I mean, that's a simple question. Are you quite spiritual, or?
Oh, you could say that. These holy men, the movie's really about them reflecting back to me. You don't even see it. It's a point of view movie, so it's I'm shooting and doing some of the interviewing, but capturing the conversations. But they're all these holy men are basically saying how bright I am, or how brilliant I am, or how spiritual I am, or how enlightened I am. And
wow.
that was like,
that's a bit humbling, isn't it?
It is.
Amazing.
Yeah. Or one Swami says, you're like God to me. I'm going, I am. He says, yeah. When strangers come and they're enlightened like you, it's like God coming to visit. And I'm going.
I wonder did they elaborate on what they meant by why you're enlightened?
Something in the movie they talk about the aura they see, the blessings they've seen other saints have given me, personally blessed. And one of the blessings was from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who was the Beatles guru, and I knew him, studied under him and worked with him for many, many years. And one of his oldest friends looked at me and said, you've been personally blessed. And I said, yeah, that was like 45 years ago. And he says, yeah, it hasn't. I'm thinking, yeah, it hasn't worn off yet. That's good.
It's a really interesting part of the Beatles' history.
Yeah.
Because of course we all know they started off as, rock kids that happened to produce this band, and the early stuff didn't really grab it for me. But as it went later on, they became more spiritual and more aware, and of course it's all the same time as the Flower Power movement, the Summer of Love, and then we'd move on to Sgt. Pepper's, and they're great albums, which they are great albums, let's be honest with you. And of course, that's a lot of that's reflected in the sound of their music. I always got the feeling that George Harrison was the one most into that side of.
He was.
I think.
But today, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr still practice TM, or Transcendental Meditation, and they support the David Lynch, who's certainly a famous filmmaker, his foundation,
great director.
And he provides instruction into Transcendental Meditation to underprivileged kids, people of color, veterans, wounded veterans, especially in the U.S. And I think they're spreading into Europe now. And they have been big supporters of that whole thing. It was the White Album of the Beatles that really was, people considered perhaps their best album. And most of those songs they wrote when they were in India. And it was that time. They were kind of burnt out before they went to India to spend the time on Maharishi. And they wrote so much music while they were there, or created such a spark of creativity, that I know John Lennon, I've seen interviews with him saying, listen, George wanted to stay longer, but I felt responsibility to our whole team and our whole company to get this next record produced. And Paul, my writing partner, had plans to leave, but I was torn because I wanted to stay longer with George. And of course, one of the people who was with them there was Prudence Farrow, my dear Prudence fame. Very good friend of mine, and was in one of my previous movies, Tirthraj, because I met her at the Mahakumbh Mela in India, and she said to me at that time, I was on my way to Varanasi, beautiful holy city, one of my favorite places in the world, and it is, she says, yeah, get a guide, go there with a guide. So I met these holy men, he took me there, he introduced me to another holy man, and one of the scenes, and my favorite scenes I ever shot was, we're in a boat rowing up the river, the Ganges River in Varanasi, with the beautiful ghats in the background, and these guys are chanting the Vedas and the ancient Sanskrit language, and it's just the most beautiful, it's the, on the most beautiful day, it's just an incredible scene. But I've just been fortunate to, at least in my filmmaking career, to be kind of at the right place at the right time, and basically sort of recording my experiences as I've gone along. I'm sort of like home movie on steroids.
It's kind of almost like guerrilla filmmaking, isn't it? I mean, having said that,
yeah,
you're there and expect you might be doing something else. It's not quite guerrilla, but you kind of, I guess, know the gig of suddenly whipping your camera out, not having a plan, but cobbling all this footage together at the end. Whereas most people, let's be honest, most people that can make a film, whether it's whatever the budget is, they have a plan, inverted commas. It may not go according to that plan, and it may be nothing like the plan, but they often have a plan, always have a plan. But you all sounds like, I'm just going to take my camera and let's see what happens kind of thing.
Well, when you're shooting a documentary, it's like you come up with a script after the fact. You don't go in.
But you'd still normally have a plan, wouldn't you?
Yeah, not a very detailed plan, and I've also relied upon outside elements, even though I've done all the shooting, the editing, and mixing and all that, narration, but I have relied upon other people's photography, and also I've had an incredible musical partner in India who's provided music to 3 of my movies. His name is Manish Vyas, one of the greatest musical artists in the world, and he's just been a great partner in providing what I consider some of the best soundtracks on movies ever, because it's his collection of music. But I also record live music when I can. I was in Nepal this year and China shooting a movie called On the Road to Shangri-La, and I had some trekkers from Nepal high up in the mountains. We're in this little hut, and they get out the guitar and start singing. And it's the most beautiful music, and it's going to make an incredible soundtrack. And it's just a live recording that I made at the time. And it's just like being at the right place at the right time. But so certainly sometimes getting up at 5:30 in the morning, rowing out onto the Ganges River on the holiest bathing day for the Kumbh Mela, and there's magical moments that you anticipate, but most of the time it's like you have to be ready.
Where do you actually live? Where is home?
I live in Fairfield, Iowa.
So have you? I know you've been to obviously Indianapolis and Hayes Ridge a lot, obviously. Have you actually lived there?
No.
Have you considered living there?
I would consider living in India. When I was younger, I lived or studied in Europe, but not in India. Switzerland, Spain,
and what was your profession?
My profession?
Because I'm assuming this is...
Yeah, this is kind of the world's most expensive hobby.
That's what they call it.
Yeah, but I'm involved in investments and startup businesses.
Oh, so this is radically different. This is like capitalism to, which it ultimately is, I suppose, if you're doing sort of startups and... No, I mean in your early days.
Yeah. No, this is a labor of love, and I got into this 10 years ago when a friend of mine, actually 11 years ago, he invited me to go to Mount Kailash in western Tibet. Have you ever heard of Mount Kailash?
No.
I hadn't either. And he says, well, Burt, he says, it's the holiest mountain in the world. I said, it is? How come I never heard of it? And hardly anybody's had heard of it until I made a movie about it. It's called Kora, K-O-R-A. And it's one of these spiritual holy mountains. You can't climb it. It's never been climbed. It's forbidden to climb it because it's so special and so sacred. And this is the holiest mountain in the world. The Hindus call it the crown chakra of the planet. It's like a power center, right? The Buddhists call it the navel of the earth. And it's the home of Lord Shiva in the Hindu tradition, or the Vedic tradition. And I said, I'm in. And when I learned a little bit about it, and it was like a 5-week trip.
So was that the defining moment in 11 years ago? Before that, you may or may not have been spiritual, I don't know. But was that the defining moment in terms of it made you look at things radically differently?
Well, it made me look at things. It was transformative.
Yeah.
For me, it was transformative for anybody I know who's gone there. It's a really tough trip, but you go there and the scenery is more beautiful than anything you would see in like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. This is like the place where heaven touches earth. When you're walking there, you feel like your head is in the heavens, but you can see your feet on the earth. So I came up with this concept at the time of, could I transform this experience into movie and have other people experience it? And the answer was, yeah. People started saying, yeah. I'm getting the blessing. I'm getting the blessing. It's partly the music, partly the narration, partly the scenery, partly the storytelling. But people have gotten that from all the movies I've made so far. They're going, hey, I'm getting a special experience, and which I call spiritual porn. My wife doesn't like that term, but people it evokes something. It evokes an experience that's really special that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And so I'm cornering the market on spiritual porn. And just because it's a catchy phrase and people think, What's that? About?
Yeah.
I was the other day in Dublin, and I was on the way to the airport, and the taxi driver asked me, I told him I was on my way here to this film festival. And he goes, what kind of movies do you make? And I said, spiritual porn. He goes, well, that's
interesting.
That's kind of counter opposites. I said, yeah, it is, but what I'm looking for is to get a reaction, have some kind of, have people have, not necessarily change their lives, but have an appreciation or have an experience of kind of what I experienced without having to go there themselves, because most people won't or can't, or it's too difficult. Or in the case of the Maha Kumbh Mela, only happens once every 144 years, so unless you're going to stick around for the next one, good luck.